Hey, what's going on, guys? The other day on social media, Conor McGregor announced that he will be taking on Michael Chandler on June 29th, which will be International Fight Week of this year, against Michael Chandler. And he also said it was going to take place at 185 pounds. And a lot of media outlets have ran with it and said Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler official for UFC 302 or whatever number they're giving it. And they're saying, oh, it's going down International Fight Week. I still don't believe this to be true. And I think Michael Chandler has no idea if he's even fighting Conor McGregor on June 29th. And we're going to take a look at not one, but two interviews that Michael Chandler did, equally as delusional in my opinion. And I've been somebody who said over the past year or so that I do not believe that Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler happens. Now, it may very well end up happening, and I will fully admit when I'm wrong when we get an official announcement. But if you've noticed, we still don't have an official announcement from the UFC. The UFC's been radio silence. Nothing from Dana White, nothing on the UFC social media, nothing on, Power Slap, on Rumble, exclusive live and free. We've heard nothing regarding Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. And Conor McGregor has been a habitual liar, especially on social media. And then Michael Chandler, after these announcements, goes on kind of a little media tour. He did two different interviews that I could find. And basically tries to say the fight's happening, but if you actually listen to what he says, he has no idea what's truly going on. I don't think he has any idea. I don't think Michael Chandler knows more than what we know right now as fans. Let's take a look at these interviews because there's a couple different clips I want to go through. The first thing I want to mention before we even start listening to this interview is, what the hell is Brett Okamoto using for a camera? Is he using a Nintendo DS? Is this a Walkman somehow that he's using as a camera? This is ESPN MMA, which I'll link this full interview down below. We're just going to look at a couple clips from it. I mean, I don't understand how a company like ESPN and, that's owned by Disney, how does this guy not have a decent camera? Seriously. Michael Chandler's using his phone, but he's a fighter. He's in his car, whatever. And his video quality is better than Brett Okamoto, who's assumedly home. And I just don't get it. It just bothers me. I hate bad quality. And also the audio wasn't that good, especially to start. And on top of that, and I hate to just make this a video crapping on MMA media, let me just tell you guys, for those of you who don't know, Brett Okamoto is a UFC shill. He's a Dana White sycophant. And he doesn't even ask decent questions in this interview. They're not the worst questions ever. But after we check out a couple clips from this interview, we're going to take a look at a TMZ interview where the guy from TMZ actually pressed Michael Chandler a little bit more than Brett Okamoto did, which was crazy. But let's listen to, I believe this was the first question, and essentially Brett Okamoto says it's not confirmed by the UFC yet. What do you think about the date, Chandler?
Kind of loudly quiet about this. Dana White has not come out and confirmed it.
So there he is talking about how it's not confirmed. That's what I was talking about. That's the question, and then you'll hear Michael Chandler's answer.
What does it mean that that's the date, June 29th?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the UFC is, the UFC is doing it how they are doing it, how they do it, and obviously we all know it.
The UFC is doing it, how they're doing it, how they're doing it. What a non-statement. AKA Michael Chandler has no idea what's going on. That's literally what he's saying here.
It's never 100% officially confirmed until, number one, we actually stepped in the octagon, but before that, and when the UFC comes out with it. But obviously,
it's not. Look, he's already backtracking on it. We're literally 1 minute into the interview. I've skipped 1 minute in. And he's like, yeah, it's never official until we get in the cage and blah, 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 and this and that. And what Brett Okamoto, he did ask about contracts in that initial question. You didn't see that. But he didn't even press Michael Chandler, like, have you been sent a contract? Have you heard anything other than what Conor McGregor said? Doesn't ask him anything. But Michael Chandler basically gives a non-answer there. But this next clip is really telling because he's asked by Brett Okamoto, did you even know what Conor was going to say during his announcement? Because Conor McGregor teased an announcement earlier in the week. And listen to Michael Chandler's answer here.
I had an idea, but you never quite know. Is it going to be another troll job? Is it going to be another, Conor, the center of attention deal?
It may very well be another troll job. I do not believe that this fight is even close to being official, and we're going to talk about why that is in a little bit, but Chandler's just literally, I'm telling you guys right now, Chandler knows no more than we know about this fight currently. He only knows what he's getting from Conor McGregor's social media. That is what he's telling me right there.
Is it going to be silence? Is he gonna? What tactic is he gonna use again to keep everybody on the edge of their seats? Not just me. Obviously, he's done a lot of things over the last year or so that was directly intended for me to hear and directly intended for my team to hear.
So there you go. Chandler admitting, I've been being trolled by Conor McGregor for a year and a half as I sat on the sidelines, praying and hoping with the MMA gods that I'll actually get this fight. Now, this next question is actually a decent question from Brett Okamoto. He's asked, how confident are you that this fight happens? And Chandler is just completely delusional here. If he honestly believes this, he's delusional.
June 29th.
I have 100% confidence that I'm fighting Conor McGregor June 29th. Now,
100% confidence that I'm fighting Conor McGregor June 29th. I would show you another clip, but I don't want to make this video too long. He did a video with, I believe it was TSN. I did a video on this maybe 6 months ago, and he was confident that him and Conor McGregor happened before the end of the year. I told you guys right then and there in that video that no, this fight isn't happening by the end of the year. There's no way that it's happening by the end of the year. So now Chandler, based off of one social media post, is 100% confident, 100% confident that this fight's happening.
Now, with that being said, like I said, whether it's Conor or anybody, it's a crazy sport. Injuries happen, sicknesses happen. The fight isn't actually happening until both of us are in the cage and Bruce Buffer starts announcing us, right?
So there you go. He's already backtracking because guess what? If this fight doesn't happen on June 29th, he's going to say, well, stuff happened and blah, blah, blah. He doesn't know. He doesn't know. We're being sold wolf tickets, guys. And the reason I need to put out videos like this is because there's actually people who are getting excited for Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler, and they don't realize this isn't official. And I want to break something down really quickly before we look at a couple more clips, and then we're going to jump to the other interview, which I think is more straight to the point, to be quite honest. TMZ did a little bit better job than Brett Okamoto, whose full-time job is to cover MMA. But I know people are going to say, Joey, Conor McGregor is saying it, Michael Chandler saying it, MMA Fighting saying it, MMA Junkie saying it. What you have to realize is Conor McGregor came out and announced this by himself, okay? All the other reputable sources are just regurgitating what Conor McGregor is saying. So while it looks like they're necessarily reporting it, they're more or less just reporting it based off of Conor McGregor's word. That's essentially what they're doing. So even though you have multiple legitimate sources, you don't have a concrete answer because at the same time, Conor's been saying he wants to fight for a while. Chandler's been saying he wants to fight for a while. So how is this any different? Both of them are saying they now want to fight on June 29th. How is this any different than before? And also, like I said earlier, Brett Okamoto's a UFC shill, a Dana White sycophant. You don't think he has Dana White's phone number? Why do you think no one has confirmed with Dana White? Why do you think that is? You don't think the UFC wants to advertise a mega fight with Conor McGregor's return as soon as possible, as soon as it's signed on the dotted line? And for those of you who do not know, the way a fight is official, obviously Chandler's right in the way that he says, you know, nothing's ever official until we're in the cage because you have injuries and sicknesses. That is kind of true. But at the same time, the way you know a fight is official is both fighters are sent a bout agreement, which has a weight class and a date on it. And then they sign those bout agreements and they send them back. That's how you know a fight is official. Michael Chandler, according to both these interviews, and he's more clear in the second interview that we're going to look at in a minute, he has not signed a bout agreement just yet, which I think is crazy. So this next clip, and this is actually going to be contradictory to what he says in the second interview, which again, we're going to look at in a second. He's kind of asked, you know, he's still going on a tangent about, you know, kind of how confident he was going to be that this fight was eventually going to happen. And he's talking about calling the UFC. Let's take a listen.
Very good job of, I'm not going to call up Dana every week and say, hey, any update? I'm not going to call up Hunter every week. Hey, any update?
I want you to remember that. I'm not going to call up Dana every week or Hunter every week and ask for an update on the fight. I'm not going to call him and ask that and, you know, talk about dates. That's what he kind of says here.
They know that I'm staying ready. They know that I'm doing my job, and they know I'm also focused on not just fighting. Luckily for them, I don't have to call them for a paycheck every 3 months because...
All right, now he goes on a spiel about, you know, he's doing other business ventures, and he's just trying to cover up for the fact that he's wasted 2 years of his career almost sitting on the sidelines waiting for Conor McGregor. Now, this next part is really just kind of, they're kind of talking about, you know, will the fight actually be at middleweight? And Chandler basically says, I have no idea if it's going to happen at middleweight. But he was asked about kind of, he started getting into why do you think Conor McGregor is kind of playing these games with you and kind of trolling you about different dates and different weight classes. And I just thought this point was just kind of comical, so I wanted to include it in the video.
Try to establish dominance to make people think that I am less than him, and that's fine. I'll take that. I'll take that all day long because
He's done that. Conor McGregor's embarrassed Michael Chandler over the last year and a half. And the more I watch these interviews, the more I started to feel bad for Chandler. I've been kind of clowning on him a bit. Conor's got him eating out of the palm of his hand, just begging for a fight that may never happen. But Conor's trying to establish dominance. Let's continue to listen for a little bit.
I'm confident in myself. I don't have an ego. I'm ready to fight, and I'm ready to take this dude's head off. So that's definitely a component. And then, yeah, I mean, obviously the weight, fighting at 185 makes him look bigger, sound bigger, feel bigger.
So, yeah, Chandler's saying Conor wants to fight at 185 because he wants to look bigger, sound bigger, and feel bigger. Yeah, Chandler, I know. You want to take him into the NBA Finals restroom. Okay, this last clip from this ESPN interview, which I was going to include another bit, but I'll just tell you about it. There was another clip where Brett Okamoto asked Chandler, do you think this will be Conor's last fight? And Chandler says, yes, I do believe this will be Conor's last fight. When I knock him out, when I dominate him, I think he will retire. I don't think he'll want to stick around anymore. But I'm not going to show you that clip. The last clip I'm going to show you is something he said right after that, which I just thought was crazy, and I wanted to include in here because you just said this guy's on his last leg, and throughout this interview, and again, I'll have this full interview linked down below, and throughout this interview, he says, Conor isn't what he once was. He rims Conor quite a bit in this interview as well, though. But this is what he says later on in the interview after saying this will probably be Conor's last fight, and sure, I'll fight him at middleweight if he wants. This is what he has the audacity to say, and this is... I pray something like this would not happen in the UFC, but listen to this.
Career, and I still got a lot of gas left in the tank even after this. So I'm ready to dismantle this guy and then see what's next. Hopefully the title.
Hopefully the title. After beating the dead carcass of Conor McGregor. That's what he's hoping for. He wants a title fight after beating the dead carcass of Conor McGregor. That is crazy, and especially considering it may happen at middleweight. My guess is it'll probably end up happening at welterweight. That's what I'm thinking. But still, a title shot for beating Conor at a different weight class than the weight class you're talking about. And that's why I believe Chandler's kind of ruined his career in a way and fumbled the bag. Because of the lightweight weight class, there's so much parity. Had Chandler reeled off 1 or 2 wins, he could have been right in title contention to face Islam Makhachev because his style, the contrast with Islam, would have been a matchup a lot of fans would have wanted to see. So in the meantime, Chandler could have been fighting and potentially got a title shot. Islam would have wanted to fight Chandler. So I think he kind of fumbled it a bit, but now he's talking about getting a title shot off a win over Conor McGregor. Absolutely crazy. And then we go to the TMZ interview. And honestly, we could have just done this on the TMZ interview, which I'll link this one also down in the description if you guys want to go check it out. But the TMZ interview, the guy kind of presses him right off the jump. This is the very beginning of the interview. Listen. Chandler kind of opens up. They don't even show the original question. But then the interviewer kind of pressed him on, well, is there contract signs? And I want you to just listen to the way Michael Chandler talks about the fight here.
I'm good, man. We got some things moving. Obviously the last year has been a nice little hiatus. And it looks like we're finally going to be getting this fight moving forward.
It looks like. That means he's not been confirmed by the UFC, which he kind of danced around the topic in the ESPN interview. It looks like this fight may be moving forward. It looks like it. Let's keep listening.
Like you said, a fight is never confirmed until we're actually inside of that octagon and that bell rings, right?
Backtracking yet again, backtracking.
But obviously the first step is the UFC announcing it. But as far as me and my team, we have spoken to the UFC weekly over.
So they haven't been calling them weekly, remember? But we've been speaking to the UFC weekly. So which is it? That's what I'd like to know. Now, this is just splitting hairs here, but I just thought this was interesting to kind of call that out. Oh, I haven't been stressed out calling the UFC every week, calling Dana White, calling Hunter Campbell, but we've been in contact with the UFC weekly. Explain to me how this makes sense. He's been in contact with the UFC weekly, but the UFC has not confirmed the date to him nor sent him the contract.
For the last year or so, but now it looks like we got ourselves a date, we got ourselves an opponent, and seemingly a weight class a little bit above what we thought it was going to be.
It seems like, again, doing a lot of heavy lifting there. It seems. Again, this fight is not confirmed, regardless of what Conor says, regardless of what Chandler says, regardless of what the MMA media says. All of them are basing everything off of a Conor McGregor drunk and coked up Twitter post. That is what this comes down to. But let's keep listening because the interview actually follows up with a decent question, unlike Brett Okamoto.
Yeah, I got a bunch of questions. So I'll start with the date, Mike. Is June 29th the date, and has that been agreed to?
As of right now, June 29th is what I am preparing for. Obviously.
Has that been agreed to? AKA, have you signed a contract? That's what I'm training for. I mean, is this guy a politician? Talk about avoiding answering a question.
When it comes out of the horse's mouth, 50% of this fight Conor and then myself. Conor coming out and saying that is the date.
So that's Chandler's source. He didn't say UFC told me that's the date. It comes out of the horse's mouth. What's crazy, and I mentioned this earlier in the video, Conor's been saying he wants to fight for months. Chandler's been saying he wants to fight for months, and a fight is not materialized. They've talked about September initially, September of last year. I know that sounds crazy. There was talks in November. There was talks in December. Still hasn't happened. There was talks at 300. Still hasn't happened. Both Conor and Chandler have both been out publicly saying they want to fight as soon as possible. So what has changed now to make us believe them now when they haven't been right before?
That's the date I'm preparing for. Obviously, we have spoken to the UFC, and that is the day I am preparing for.
We have spoken to the UFC, and that is the day that I am preparing for. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't seem like he's gotten confirmation from the UFC at all.
That is what we're looking forward to. So
no contract signed yet. But you're good for the 29th. He's good for the 29th, and that's what we assume is going to happen. But not yet signed.
Yeah, and that's
great question. I bet you that guy's a total casual, but great question. Brad Okamoto couldn't follow up to clarify. He let kind of Chandler kind of speak in circles. No contract signed. And listen to what Chandler has to say.
And that's honestly how this sport moves along sometimes. There's fights that are made, and there's not contracts necessarily signed yet because it's a gentleman's agreement. So, yeah.
And that is partially true, but with a fight of this magnitude that was announced essentially in February, a year ago. It was announced beginning of February, so 11 months ago. They coached the Ultimate Fighter. We've been waiting all this time, and now he's talking, oh, there's a gentleman's agreement. Well, wasn't that gentleman's agreement back in February of 2023? Now it's January of 2024. So it makes absolutely no sense. I do not believe this for 1 second. It may ultimately happen, but right now, this is nowhere close to confirmed. This is absolutely nowhere close to confirm. And then one last clip from the TMZ interview, which I thought was interesting. Again, let's listen to it real quick.
This year, but couldn't be happier with the stage. Couldn't be happier with getting this fight looking like it's getting shored up, and I'm ready to sign that contract and go out there and beat this dude up.
I am happy that the fight is looking like it's getting shored up, and I want to sign the contract. AK, the contract has not been sent to him yet. I mean, think about that. Think about that. The contract has not been signed yet. Yet he's doing a media tour because Conor McGregor, drunk and probably on coke, said in a Twitter video that the opponent's going to be Michael Chandler and laughs hysterically. And I honestly feel, here's what I truly feel is going on behind the scenes. I think Conor McGregor decided he didn't feel like fighting Michael Chandler anymore. Maybe he had his eyes on the Nate Diaz trilogy. And I think what happened was Conor was trying to toy with Michael Chandler so much that Michael Chandler would move on. And then Conor would have an out rather than just kind of saying, oh, I don't want to fight Chandler. And I think it's kind of not worked because Chandler's just sat there like a puppy dog following Conor around, stalking his Instagram, stalking his social media, praying for a fight announcement. And now that Chandler just won't come off this fight and Conor's like, oh my goodness, what do I got to do to get this guy to stop trying to fight me? I think Conor's just going to sign another fight. And also, it wouldn't shock me if Conor's having negotiations behind the scenes with the UFC regarding a new contract. Conor's probably realizing, you know what, I broke my leg catastrophically in the Dustin Poirier fight. I may not be around forever. I want a bigger contract. I'm a big draw. I want a bigger cut. And that could be going on behind the scenes because right now, nothing else makes sense. USADA is gone. They've literally gotten rid of USADA for Conor McGregor. USADA is gone. But the fact that Chandler's acting as if, and he did this more in the ESPN interview where I didn't show you. I watched the whole entire thing. Like and subscribe and thank me for suffering through that. But how many times have Conor said he's retiring on social media? I mean, and MMA media runs with it every time. How many times has Conor McGregor said, oh, I'm fighting this guy, I'm fighting that guy on social media? It gets, at one point he was talking about a Tyron Woodley fight. At one point he's talking about, a GSP fight. I mean, there's been so many different times. He hasn't done it in this capacity, but Conor McGregor's social media announcement in any regards to a fight in MMA are not reliable. And Michael Chandler is basing his entire training camp. And in the Brett Okamoto interview, he's talking about, I'm going to get ready to go away from my family and get to training camp down in Florida off of one Conor McGregor social media post. And I think there's more going on behind the scenes than we know. And it might be negotiations with the UFC. I mean, you had Conor last week saying, I want to box Manny Pacquiao. I think it could also be Francis Ngannou just set that, planted that seed. And Conor's looking at what Francis is doing now. And Conor was the original to do that against Floyd Mayweather. And Conor's thinking, you know what, maybe I should try for a boxing match. That could also be going on behind the scenes. So I still have my doubts this fight happens. It could very well happen. But again, I don't trust this at all until the UFC officially announces it. Once the UFC does officially announce it, I'll be the first to make a video and say, oh, look, I was wrong. You know, the fight is actually coming together. Michael Chandler is getting his wish. But until then, until we have an actual reliable source that the fight is happening, I'm going to keep my skepticism. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Let me know, do you think this fight is actually going to happen in 2024? Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.